Marta, you've been reporting from inside the courtroom in Morwell, a small town about 2 hours east of Melbourne. What has this case been like for you to cover? Have you covered a case like this before?
Yeah, so it's been very much a first for me. Like, this is the first trial that I've seen from beginning to end. It is also a story that I covered from the very beginning back in 2023. So we've been down in Morwell, me and my colleague Erin Patterson, reporting on this for 8 weeks, 8 full weeks, and a bit of the ninth week now. So it's been an exhausting process, getting to court early, covering proceedings all day, and then getting home and doing some more work on it. So it's been a mammoth marathon effort. But now we're sort of slowly getting close to the end. There's been a lot of interest from both, true crime aficionados, members of the public, as well as international media. So we've had people lining up outside of court from 6 in the morning, 6:15 in the morning. Doors open at 9 a.m. So these people are braving the Gippsland cold. It's been really, really cold in Morwell. It's been, 0 degrees, 1, 2 degrees, like freezing weather. And so they're waiting outside the door, sometimes with camping chairs and blankets for the door to open. This is a very small courtroom, so there's not many seats available. There's only 6 for the media and probably about a dozen for the general public. So, seats are tight. So these people are just basically waiting out to make sure that they can sit inside the court and listen to proceedings, which is pretty, it's a level of commitment that not many people would have.
So in that final week, which was last week, we heard closing arguments from the prosecution and, of course, the defence. Let's start with the prosecution. What were their main takeaways?
Yeah, so what the prosecution did basically was articulate those final arguments, that final address to the jury around 4 main deceptions that they say that Erin Patterson engaged in. The first of those deceptions was her fake cancer lie. So basically the fact that she'd lured her lunch guests to her house on July 29, 2023 by telling them that she had some serious medical news to discuss. That turned out to be a fake cancer diagnosis. The prosecution said that there was no evidence that she'd ever had cancer and that she used that as an excuse to bring them to her house because it was unusual for her to actually have people over for lunch. They said that was also an excuse as to why the children weren't going to be present. The second deception that they said Erin Patterson engaged in was the lunch itself. They said that she had purposely and deliberately sought out death cap mushrooms that she had dehydrated using a dehydrator, blitzed them, and then hid them in the beef Wellington that she had served her guests. They said that the reason that Erin Patterson had deviated from the original recipe to do individual beef Wellingtons was also part of this deception, was a way of ensuring that she could serve that poison meal to her guests while also ensuring that her parcel of beef Wellington did not contain death cap mushrooms. Which takes me to the third deception, which the prosecution say that Patterson engaged in, which was that she acted as though she was ill in the aftermath of the lunch. They said that she did that to avoid scrutiny about it because it would look unusual if her lunch guests were all terribly unwell, but she wasn't. So what they told the jury was that this was a lie, that there was no evidence that she had been seriously ill, and that she fabricated that to sort of deflect some of that blame that might fall upon her as the cook of the meal. And then the fourth deception that they say that Patterson engaged in was what they described as a sustained cover-up that she had engaged in to conceal the truth. This included lying to the police and health authorities about the source of the mushroom, being a mushroom forager, and also having a dehydrator, as well as giving a dummy phone to the police, what the prosecution that said that was a dummy phone, that she factory reset multiple times to conceal the contents of her regular phone. And then what came a bit as a surprise for all of us was a fifth deception that senior Crown prosecutor Dr. Nanette Rogers said that Patterson had engaged in, and that was the deception that she tried to play on the members of the jury by giving untruths during her time in the witness box as a witness in the case.
So you talk about the 4 deceptions, the 5 deceptions actually, that you explained so well for us there. But Erin Patterson's barrister really leant on the idea that the prosecution had not actually identified a motive. So how did the defence argue this?
That's right. So basically, the defense said, why would Erin Patterson want to kill her in-laws as well as, Ian Wilkinson and Heather and his wife, Heather Wilkinson, because she loved her in-laws. So they pointed to text messages and exchanges between Erin Patterson and her in-laws, Don and Gail Patterson, where they seemed to have an amicable relationship. They said that there was only a period of time where there was animosity between them. And it was when she was having a series of conversations about child support payments with her estranged husband, Simon Patterson, but that otherwise they were in good terms. They were the grandparents to her children, and so she had no reason to want to hurt them. They said that the most likely explanation was the one that Erin Patterson had given herself, which was that she was a keen forager, that she might have gone foraging for mushrooms. She had dehydrated those and mixed them in with other mushrooms that she'd purchased from an Asian grocery store in Melbourne, and that she had put those in the meal without realizing that it actually contained poisonous death cap mushrooms, which are some of the most poisonous mushrooms that grow in the wild here. They also told the jury, just because Erin Patterson lied, that doesn't make her a murderer, and she's not actually on trial for lying. And so they told, basically, defense barrister Colin Mandy told the jury, you need to remember that you need to make a decision with your head, not with your heart, and that you need to consider the facts like a judge. And basically, really think about whether the prosecution has proven beyond reasonable doubt that she did what she did deliberately, and not that their version of events is the most likely version of events.
Now, Marta, Erin Patterson herself was in the dock for 8 days of evidence. How did she fare with cross-examinations and questions in general? Did anything stick out to you?
Yeah, so it was a very lengthy cross-examination. Even her evidence in chief was fairly long. There were 8 days of her basically being in the witness box and being grilled by prosecutor Dr. Nanette Rogers, who prepared, very thoroughly for that cross-examination over a number of days. She was asked about a lot of things, including her relationships with her family members, as well as, the events leading up and after the lunch. I think some of the interesting facts that came out of it, among many others, were the fact that she described that after the lunch, on that 29th of July 2023, she had eaten about 2/3 of cake that were left over, and then she had made herself throw up after being overfull. Now, that is something that the defense also pointed to when they talked about the fact that she may not have experienced death cap mushroom poisoning symptoms in the same way as the others. Something else that came out in that process of cross-examination was the fact that she had made inquiries about getting gastric bypass surgery. There was a lot of talk about how she was very self-conscious about her weight, and that was something that she had carried with herself over a number of years. And so that she was looking at undergoing that surgery. And what Patterson told the jury in her evidence in chief and also under cross-examination was that basically that was the reason why she'd lied about cancer, was because she was ashamed about undergoing gastric bypass surgery, and she needed an excuse to make arrangements for the children while she was in hospital for that gastric bypass surgery.
Now we get to the bit where the jury is expected to be dismissed for their deliberations. How difficult a task is this for them? What is expected and required of them?
Yeah, look, so what's going to happen next? We're at that point now where the judge is delivering his charge. That's the final directions to the jury. Then after that point, the jurors, at the moment we've got 14 jurors, so 2 will be balloted off and the remaining 12 jurors will be sequestered. That's a process where they are put in accommodation and taken into court to do their deliberations. That's a process that we don't know how long that's going to take. The Supreme Court Justice Bill, the judge presiding over the trial, said it himself. How long is a piece of string? No one really knows how long that's going to take. They have to reach a unanimous verdict. So they're going to be, making those deliberations over a number of hours, potentially days, maybe weeks, who knows. And then at the end of that, when they've considered all the evidence in the case, hopefully we'll have a verdict and that will be communicated to the court. But there's a lot of evidence in this case. There's a number of witnesses over a number of days. And so there's a lot of material that those jurors will be asked to consider. So it'll be an absolute mammoth of a task, I would assume.
You said it might be days, you said it might be weeks. The question everyone will want to know, how long might this take? How long do jury deliberations tend to take?
We don't know. It really depends on the trial. So in this case, anything I could say would be pure speculation because we just simply do not know. We're not in the room. We're not allowed to know what happens within the jury room. So any guess is a good guess at this point in time. But yeah, like, look, it depends on the trial. There's trials where we've had verdicts come back within a matter of like 20 minutes or a couple of hours. There's times where it's taken multiple days. So we can only wait and see.
Marta, thank you for your tireless reporting on this story, and thank you for joining the Morning Edition.
Thank you for having me.